Hello, empaths! Welcome back to the Maya's Dream channel, or welcome if this is your first time. I'm so happy to have you here. If you do not know me, here I am. My name is Maya Joy, and I myself am an empath and a psychic, and today's video is so close to my heart. Today's video is, on the topic of weight and freedom with food and how to eat as an empath. And I am actually making this recording for you today on Thanksgiving, which is a very food-centered holiday in the United States. And in recent weeks, a lot of people have actually been coming to me for readings, and they've been asking questions about how to heal their body and how to eat and feel comfortable in their body. And oh my gosh, I just want to say my heart goes out to all of you highly sensitive people and empaths who have at any point in your life struggled with food. The struggle with food and eating in modern times as an empath is so common that I would almost list it as like one of the signs or symptoms of being an empath or highly sensitive person. So in today's video, which is actually more of an audio, so I should have said this at the beginning, but this is designed for you to listen to as you go about your life. So I hope you get a chance to listen to this while doing something that really nourishes your heart and soul. But anyway, in today's audio, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what an empath is and why empaths struggle with food and how to conceive of kind of a new way of eating where you can really have freedom with food and use food as it was actually designed to be sort of a medicine and a sense of something that can help us to ground into our physical bodies and stabilize our energy here on the earth plane. At the end of the video, I'm also going to share a little bit about my own journey with eating and food and finally finding a way to eat that helped strengthen my intuition and helped me to feel comfortable in my body after just like years of struggling. And I'm also going to share, and it'll be linked below, I'm going to share a video that helped me really conceive of eating in a new way, and that helped me to create a foundation of understanding as an empath for how to approach food and eating. So anyway, once again, I just want to say thank you for being here today. It is such an honor to be a part of your path, and let's just jump in and get started. So in case you just stumbled on this video, you might be wondering, what is an empath? So this is a topic in and of itself, and I actually have on my channel a playlist for empaths with tons of information on this. But essentially, an empath is a person who is very energetically sensitive to their environment. So there are different degrees of empaths, of course, and people that are energy sensitive. But I have definitely seen literature which suggests that about 1 out of every 4 people on the planet is gifted with the empath abilities or clairsentience to be able to feel energies of other people and the environment much more intensely than others. And many people who are empaths don't necessarily realize that they actually are. When you're born as an empath and you're very sensitive to energy, that's kind of the only thing that you know. And really, I think a lot of people only discover that they're empaths when they're faced kind of with somebody who isn't, We can often think it's other people that are strange. Oh, you're not able to perceive the feelings of that really sad person who's in the room right now. You're the strange one, right? But actually, as empaths, we are the ones who have special gifts. And in this modern time, empaths are being recognized more and more for the gifts that they do have. And now even in psychology, the term highly sensitive person, which is basically a slightly more scientific term for empath, is now recognized, and there's literature and research on this phenomenon. So first of all, if you are an empath, I hope you really take pride in the fact that you are. Yes, there are some challenges that come along with being an empath, and navigating food is probably one of those things, but there are also so many gifts that come along with being an empath. We're able to feel so much more deeply of all emotions, and that includes the positive emotions like joy and love and gratitude, and we're able to more easily and richly experience all the senses of this world. And so that is, the emotional senses, but also we have an ability to more deeply feel and appreciate things like music and art and spiritual experiences and all of this. So there are many good things about being an empath. But when you are an empath, you're extra sensitive to everything. I think it's like I said, every empath is going to have a different degree of empathy, but I think it's reasonable to say that empaths are probably about 4 times more sensitive to energy than just an average person is. And we are sensitive to the energy that comes off of all living things. So this includes people, animals, nature, crystals, all this kind of stuff, but also food products. So as empaths, we have extra sensitivities, and this includes extra sensitivity to what is in our food. This can include extra sensitivity to food stimulants, chemicals in food, food dyes, and often empaths will identify with having like what are subclinical, in a lot of cases, like subclinical food sensitivities that are actually very, very real. So, for example, a lot of sensitive empaths can experience sensitivities to things like gluten, but they might go in and find out, they don't have celiac disease, but they still feel really unwell when they eat gluten, for example, or when they eat nightshades or inflammatory foods like soy or peanuts or things like this. I'm so sensitive, and I sort of enhance my sensitivity for my job because I do psychic readings full time, and I'm so blessed to be able to do them. As we do more spiritual work and become, and actually do things to strengthen our gifts, we become more and more sensitive to food. At this point, my physical body is so sensitive that even things like processed salt have a huge impact on the levels of like fluids in my body and the way that I feel. So it's amazing to be so sensitive and have such gifts and be able to do readings every day and just all these wonderful things. But it also means that our bodies are more responsive to our environment. So on the topic of our sensitivity to food, like stimulants, like things like sugar, we are so sensitive to sugar as empaths. A long time ago, I was asking myself, is sugar a drug? And I went on this whole thing where I eliminated sugar from my diet for a year and everything. And I eventually realized for me that it was, right? But things like sugar and caffeine and additives and alcohol and stuff can have an extra sort of addictive quality for empaths. And certainly everybody in a human body is going to experience mild, metabolic shifts and things as a result of the chemicals in our food and the dyes in our food and the stimulants. But empaths may experience this, as much as 4 times or more the effects of what we put into our body. And this is especially problematic here in what I keep calling like modern times. And I guess what I mean by modern times is sort of since the Industrial Revolution here on planet Earth. And this is highly problematic because in this day and age, foods in many senses are no longer food. So food, like things that we find, commonly in all of our supermarkets. I'm thinking in this moment of things like Cheetos or Doritos or breakfast cereals or even bread. Like, it's actually designed with chemicals to make us want to eat more, or designed with chemicals to be almost a little bit habit forming. Like, I'm sort of hesitating to use the word addictive, but I'm sure you've all had the experience of sitting down and maybe you're having a cookie, or you're having, some chips or some crackers or some cereal or something like that. And you feel like, oh my God, like I cannot stop eating this. I think that empaths are more susceptible to experiencing these types of feelings than regular people are. People who are not energy sensitive or not as sensitive to what is in their environment. And so the first thing that I really want to convey to everybody is have compassion for yourself, because your sensitivity to these sort of highly palatable foods is actually part of your gifts and abilities. And I think as empaths, so many of us are old souls too, like for a lot of us, right? This isn't our first time here in the earth plane. And many of us come in with a lot of experience in how to care for the physical body and the soul. And I think that many of us actually come in with this wisdom that food is medicine, and we come in and into these physical bodies, and we understand that food can be used to ground, replenish, and stabilize our energy. And many of us have memories of feeling a little bit out of balance, or burnt out, or having kind of a lower life force energy in prior lifetimes, and being able to replenish or stabilize that energy by sitting down and, having a nice hot meal or something like that. Food on this planet, as it was designed to be, is supposed to be medicinal for the body. And I think so many of us take in these intense messages of judgment. There's so many messages of judgment around body and food in this dimension right now. And I feel like emotional eating, which is basically eating as a way to help stabilize or improve your emotional state, or eating when you experience high emotions, there's so much guilt and shame around this. One thing that I want to convey today is I think that the desire to eat when we are in a heightened emotional state is actually intrinsic within many of us. And if we were in an environment where food was food, would actually be a very healing practice. So that impulse that we have to reach for food in order to help us feel better and heal, our emotional state, our mental state, and our physical state, I believe that this principle is correct, and that it has worked for most of us who have been gifted in our prior incarnations on this planet for centuries upon centuries. The challenge of this is that food can only be used to help strengthen our energy and bring balance to the body and mind and emotional sphere, and ground us when it is actually food. Right? When it is actually the food, was put on this planet by the divine, right? That comes from nature, that has that sort of natural, life force chi energy within it. And the issue is that we're in this environment that's incredibly unnatural for us. And I think it's reasonable to say that if you walk into a supermarket, probably between 90 to 95% of everything that you would see is devoid of life force energy and life-giving energy, and is destabilizing to the system of an empath for various reasons. And maybe I can talk more about those reasons in upcoming videos. But most of what you'll find isn't life-giving energy. most of what you'll find in a supermarket. And even worse than that is that many of the things that are not truly food and are actually very destabilizing, laden with colors and chemicals that are designed to affect our body and mind in certain ways, right? These things, products, I'll call them, because they're not really food, but they're more like food-like products, are highly, 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 highly marketed to us in so many different ways. On television, on radio, on our social media. But even if you don't engage with any of that, and I personally don't, we're still very susceptible even to just the advertisements in the places of shopping themselves, in the supermarkets themselves. And so as empaths, not only are we more sensitive to foods and emotions, but we're more sensitive to the shopping environment as well, right? So we're more sensitive even to the advertisement, to the colors and the lights, and the packaging and the music that's played in the store to get us to feel a certain way. And we're way more likely, I don't know if you guys have this in your stores, maybe not now with COVID, but like I could think to times in the past where maybe you go into a store and they're doing like samples of highly palatable food products, and that there's that nice warm lady or person, they say, oh, please, would you come over here and try this highly addictive and palatable like food product, and you just feel so much for that, and I don't want to disappoint that person, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll try that, and the next thing you're craving this or that or all these different things. And I just want to convey to all the empaths listening today, it's not your fault. Unfortunately, when it comes to, we almost can't follow our instincts with food in some ways. I know that might sound a little strange, but we're in almost like a militant food environment here, especially in the United States, and especially, when I'm recording this here in 2020. It's just shocking. There's actually a concerted effort by food companies to actually convince us that, to trick us, basically, and no shade on those companies, but to convince us that foods that are actually not foods, but more like food-like products are actually deeply nourishing and safe, and that we can trust them, and they'll make us feel warm and cozy, and, even on a subconscious level, that they'll bring us love or connection or stuff. And the companies go to tremendous efforts to get us to consume these products, which pull us out of energetic alignment. And then that has all kinds of effects on our lives. It can make us feel things towards ourselves like guilt or shame. It can make us feel unwell, and it can interfere with the expression of our love and our gifts on this planet, and just cause all kinds of physical issues and things like that. And just in this moment, I just invite everyone, if you've had struggles like this, to just give yourself a big hug and know it's not your fault. I mean, there's been a concerted effort to expose you to and to things that are hard on your physical body as a highly sensitive person. So we just need to develop compassion for ourselves. It can be very hard to feel so deeply, and often, we are fighting our biology with these, highly marketed products that are intentionally designed to be habit forming, and we're just so sensitive to getting pulled into this because our impulse, and I think in many cases our training and past life experience says, I need to replenish my energies, I need to ground, I need to uplift my energy, let me eat. And that is the correct impulse. And yet then we think, what should I eat? And we're just bombarded with just tons of advertising, a lot of which is subliminal, that tells us, eat this thing, it will bring you love, it'll bring you joy. And maybe that thing is Oreos, or that thing is Coca-Cola or Pepsi, or that thing is chips, or like all this kind of stuff. And really all these things are actually not food. They're actually not food. And it took me years to realize this. But the good thing is, once we start to understand what is food and reconceive of this, we actually can follow that impulse, and we can eat every time we're hungry and when we need to ground and things like that. And we'll experience vibrant health and freedom. And so I want to talk a little bit about more about like what that kind of looks like I said, and share with you guys a video that I think a couple years back inspired my current, lifestyle, and that finally helped me see what I needed to see to be able to eat in abundance, and be, experience health and freedom with food and an enhancement of my gifts and abilities. So I just want to say to everybody, it is unfortunate that we live in a society where you almost have to take a defensive approach to gathering your food. I wish it wasn't so. Sometimes I feel nostalgic for past times on Earth and more agricultural societies where, there weren't so many choices, and every choice that was there was whole and of the earth and stuff, because it was easier in those times to trust in our bodies and minds, and to fundamentally be emotionally centered, grounded, and well in our connection with food than it is now. So what I want to convey to everyone, though, is that it is possible and worthwhile as an empath or highly sensitive person to work towards a healthful diet that grounds and balances our energy so that we can feel our best and feel confident in who we are and contribute positively to this world. And it is possible to be able to love like eating and eat as much as you need and want, and not experience issues with weight or issues with digestion, and to be able to eventually learn like what foods that you can eat when you need to affect your energy in certain ways. And for me, this journey of learning to do so, really began when my awakening began. And it's took a couple of years, but it's been an amazing journey. So I actually want to just share a little with you all about my own personal journey with food and eating as an empath and psychic and highly sensitive person. I was born really sensitive to energy. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. I was definitely psychic as a child, and I can remember being pre-verbal and being able to feel all the emotions and even hear the thoughts of my parents and caregivers, seeing spirits of the deceased as a child, and all of these different things. I didn't learn that I was an empath until I got my first psychic reading when I was 21, and that forever changed my life. As somebody who was so sensitive, though, I always felt uncomfortable in my physical body almost as soon as I can remember my first thoughts. I remember feeling uncomfortable in my body and unsure about my relationship to food. Part of this was thought patterns that I actually absorbed from my parents as a child. Both of my parents definitely had a lot of thoughts related to their own bodies and how they wanted them to be. And they're both very health inspired, very fitness inspired, and honestly both had a lot of self-criticism towards their physical bodies. And I think I absorbed that even as a child. I could read my mom's thoughts as she looked in the mirror, her thoughts of judgment towards her own body. And in reality, both of my parents are actually healthy weight, and they were incredibly fit at that time. And yet there was a lot of energies related to discomfort around the physical body. And I took that on immediately as a child. And I also absorbed, a lot of the societal energies related to guilt around food and stuff like that at that time. And I kind of grew up in the 90s, and at that time, like a low-fat diet was really popular and stuff. And there was a lot of like commercials and advertisement and things like that, just related to being slim and all this kind of stuff. And I can remember taking that on and like feeling guilty about the food that I was craving, as early as preschool. Like, I can remember being too young to be able to express what I was feeling and already feeling like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have eaten that cookie or that chocolate milk or this kind of stuff. And I realize now that that was because of my sensitivity. And as time went on, I experienced myself, I guess, having cravings for certain foods if I needed to uplift my energy, or it's like I would feel so exposed like to the world, like when I would go out in the world or even just like go to school or stuff like that. And then afterwards, like I would want to feel better, and I would come home and I would like crave sugar or carbohydrates or things like that, to uplift my energy. And for years, like I struggled with that, well into my 20s, but I didn't necessarily fully like make the connection that is what was going on, that I needed to ground or uplift my energy after exposure to certain energies. I just knew that when I felt overwhelmed, that I craved certain foods or things like that. And I blamed myself, and I definitely thought, this is just me, there's something wrong with me. And it really affected my quality of life, for sure. It really affected my quality of life a great deal. And I just didn't understand. Like, it was just like there were these foods all around me, other friends, and, people were eating all these foods that were mostly, packaged, processed foods. And I felt like, why am I so sensitive to these? But I didn't understand why, right? Because I didn't learn that I was an empath until into my 20s. And even when I did learn, I didn't understand what it really meant. I'm still coming to understand really how sensitive that I am. So I guess when I was about 22, 23, my body started to get sick. And eventually it got really sick. And those of you that know my story know that I actually, basically had a near-death experience, if not a real death experience. I was unconscious for 8 days. And then I emerged as a new person. But anyway, so eventually my body got really sick, and I knew I needed, I'd always, dreamed of being able to trust the, hunger cues of my body and stuff like this, and be able to just, just not have these issues or these feelings, towards my body and towards food. I always felt a little hesitant, if I eat this, I don't know how it's going to affect my energy, and, why is this and stuff. So around the time of my, big spiritual awakening, which really happened in about 2014, I just became determined to find a higher way, with food. And honestly, it was a long and winding road. I tried a lot of different things. First, I was paleo, and I was vegan for a really long time, even raw vegan, even fruitarian for a while. I even ate a very strict keto diet for a time period. This was partially due to experiencing some serious neurological issues at that time. And then I even discovered Ayurveda. And I discovered my dosha, and that was actually really transformative. Actually, my guides and angels sent me a literal angel incarnated named Nisha, who helped me learn Eastern principles for eating in a way to balance my energy, and that was from Ayurveda. But eventually, I realized that none of these strict dietary protocols were going to be sustainable for me for my whole life, And so I started to think about what all of these different like healthy diets that, I had tried and that had helped me, what they all had in common. I just started to think, okay, I felt good as a paleo, I felt good as a vegan, so what do all these different things have in common? And I realized that the reason why all these different things work is because all of these different diets were composed of, whole, largely unprocessed foods, like from nature. And in particular, they were all composed of a lot, like high in vegetables, especially cooked vegetables. You guys, my life changed like when I finally learned like how to cook and prepare vegetables like in a way that actually allowed me to be able to digest them and things like that. So I realized that all the diets that like helped me to feel my best were all composed largely of these whole unprocessed foods from nature, and had very minimal, or even in some cases no, processed or refined foods. Just very minimal processing of foods, and they were devoid of these food-like products that are not actually food. This is, and so I had this awareness that came to my mind. And at the same time, I also learned from Ayurveda, not just like what to eat to balance my dosha, which if you guys are curious, my dosha is Vata Pitta. But the most important things I learned from Ayurveda was how to eat as a highly energetically sensitive person. And it was things like, I finally learned, why, like, I never felt good when I ate and talked on the phone or had a bunch of conversations while I was eating. I learned that affected the quality of my energy, that I was taking in the social energies and it made it more difficult to digest. And I learned that I need warm food, and I learned which foods help me to ground, and I learned what time of day to eat, and I learned what kind of how to create an environment, and that's helpful for digestion and integration of food. And I learned about herbs to help with digestion. And I remember I discovered Triphala, which is like a universally balancing, for the most part, Ayurvedic herb that also can really help with, balancing the digestion and also weight loss as well. So that might be something to consider if you're listening today, if it resonates with you. And of course, I should say if your doctor approves of it. But I just learned about that, and I started to get in touch with sort of the more ancient roots around food and eating. And I think one of the things that I learned the most was how to actually sit down and chew my food and eat. Because I live in a society where that's actually not that common. Yes, like so many of us eat on the go, eat in the car, and we're not eating as humans were designed to eat, but we don't even realize, because neither is anyone else around us. Like everyone's almost lost touch with the type of eating in both an environmental sense and in a substance sense that has been a part of the human experience for the entire human experience up until, the past 100 years or so. But really, I would say up until, the past probably 70 years. So our bodies are not adjusted to this strange way of approaching food-like products and sustenance here in modern times. So over the past couple weeks, especially, a lot of beautiful souls have been asking me about guidance around weight loss, specifically as highly sensitive people. And I kid you not, like every empath that I've ever gotten really close to, and pretty much everyone that I am close to is an empath. That's the truth. So like they've all had their own personal struggle with food. Usually it's the case of struggling with maybe eating too much of things that are not of, health promoting. But in some cases, it's just losing touch with the body altogether, not eating enough, disordered eating as a way to connect to the body. And that's a whole nother topic as well. But I believe in a lot of cases, restrictive eating patterns can help souls connect to the body that have become disconnected. And this is the case because, of course, if you restrict eating or things like that, it focuses you more on your hunger cues and things like that. And for some people, that helps them to connect more with their body. Or some people have just experienced a feeling of being out of control with food and they just don't know what to do. And so they kind of bring back that control. But I've rarely met empaths, especially under the age of like 25 or so, who have figured out how to eat in a way that helps them to feel balanced, healthy, and whole. And that makes my heart really sad. So as people have been asking me recently, I've been thinking about my own journey and how I eat now. And I realized that there was a specific video that I watched that like shifted my awareness and almost like taught me how to eat. Because God bless my parents and family and everyone who raised me, but they didn't teach me how to eat in a way that was going to be healthy for me. My parents, they recently told me, my sister recently got married and we were all just together for an extended weekend. And they said, well, we wanted you to grow up with knowing how to handle these foods. And so they actually like filled our pantries with stuff like sugar cereal and Pop-Tarts and candy dishes all over our house and stuff like that. Because they thought that if they did this, then we would learn how to be around these foods and incorporate them into our diet. And to a certain extent, that was true. However, for me, given the sensitivities of my physical body could not handle this amount of highly processed food. And it really negatively influenced my health. So here today, and this has been a gradual journey, but I've eventually learned to like love like vegetables. And most days, I would say 95 to 100% of what I eat are whole, unprocessed foods. And this is like what my body craves now. And I definitely eat in abundance. That is for sure. And the video that I'm going to attach below is about this principle. It isn't maybe of the highest vibrational frequency exactly. Like if you listen to it, you might think, oh, this is a little harsh. But if you can take it in and watch to the end, I think it can help you to transform your relationship to food. That was definitely the case for me. But now I just eat like in absolute abundance of, things like stir fries and vegetable soups. And I just love the food from nature and it just helps me feel so happy. And I've just cleaned out my body so much. And I'm just so grateful for everything that I've learned about both what to eat and how to eat in a way that brings me balance. And, almost every night now, I will sit down and I'll eat like dinner by candlelight, and I finally learned how to connect with my food and trust in the food from nature to nourish my body. And I'm so grateful because for years, this is one of the things that I would reach out to my own guides for, the most. And I for years, I didn't know if it was possible to ever be able to really trust in my body and to be able to like eat in abundance and then also feel comfortable in my body at the same time. But finally, I've stabilized in that way. And I just, more than anything else, even if you don't watch the video today after listening to this, I just want to just send you all a big hug and just let you know if you're an empath and you've struggled privately with issues around food, that you're not alone. This is very, 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 very common. And each person's physical body is a little bit different, so the foods that will bring you into balance are going to be a little bit different for everyone. But as a general principle, eating lots of vegetables and fruits and whole grains and things like that from nature, these natural, unprocessed, unrefined foods, the ones that you like and enjoy the most, cooked and prepared in a way that helps you to digest them, this is going to work for most, if not all, empaths. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this topic And just today felt like the right day because it is Thanksgiving. And so the topic of food is just, so much on so many people's hearts and minds. And with this current pandemic that we are in, these times of COVID, so many people have put on a weight and they're just not feeling their best. And I just want all of you to feel your absolute best and to understand that your impulse to reach to food to regulate your energy is correct. And when you reach to those whole, natural, unprocessed foods, they will bring you into balance. And you can experience more love for your physical body and just feel your very best. And from that place, you can share more love with the world. And I'm just wishing for all of you greater nourishment, I think so many of us have even nutritional deficiencies and things like that, and we don't even know, and that can impact our mental health. But when we begin to listen to the body and feed it the things it recognizes as food, amazing transformation can happen. So if you guys are interested in more topics related to empaths, related to food, let me know in the comments below. And I just want to say, if you so happen to be listening today or this weekend, happy Thanksgiving. I love and appreciate all of you who are here. You mean the world to me, so thank you so much for being here. You guys don't even know how much I love creating, and you give me a platform to do that, and that is the greatest blessing that I can ever imagine. And right now I'm just visualizing everybody who's listening experiencing a positive transformation in their health and real true enjoyment with the process of eating and preparing food, because this is part of what we look forward to when we come to Earth. And once we identify what really is food, and sort of reconceptualize our way of eating, it can become something that we don't ever have to fear, but something that we look forward to. And just a little bit of research or focus can allow us also to identify, I think, things like spices and herbs and stuff that can help our sensitive, empath bellies to be able to better digest the food that we do take in. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. It's been an absolute honor to connect with all of you who are listening. Once again, I'm sending you the biggest hug, and I hope that you experience vibrant health and a balanced body, mind, and soul. Many blessings, and namaste.